Welcome to our free webinar on Google Analytics, which I know some of you are probably thinking this is the nerdiest topic ever, and a lot of you are probably thinking, you know what, I've got people to handle Google Analytics for me, and a lot of you may be thinking, we've got that covered and we don't really care. So we're going to hopefully change your mind about all three of those things today. And we're focusing mainly on the marketing aspects of Google Analytics. So there are actually three questions that marketing managers, marketing directors, owners of companies, and other types of folks need to answer that Google Analytics can really help us with. And it's really not that nerdy. It's not scary. We're going to keep it out of the weeds. And John's going to keep us honest to make sure we don't go there, right?
Of course.
Of course. All right, so this webinar is for you if you have a website, of course. If the purpose of your website is to sell products or services, so if you are doing some kind of a hobby, or you have a podcast or something like that, and you're selling advertising, then this is not for you. So we just want to make sure that we're doing setting this up so that you're spending the time as you should, so that you get the most out of this. This webinar is for you if you'd like to get more information about your visitors, if you need your visitors to buy your stuff, and if you are not a Google Analytics Academy graduate. If you are a Google Analytics Academy graduate, then this is probably going to be too elementary for you. So you may be too smart for the room. That's okay. You can leave now.
And then talk to us later about actually, authoring the course for us.
Exactly. So, mainly we're talking about the marketing version of, the marketing view of Google Analytics. So, question, are you selling something on this webinar? And the answer is yes, we are. Thank you for asking. Of course we are. We're a marketing company, so of course we market things, and we use these webinars to promote our own products and services, but we do believe that you're going to get a lot of value out of this, whether you choose to use us or not. Aviation is a very small world, so we think that we can help the industry and help ourselves by reducing the amount of random acts of marketing running around in the world, right, John?
Yep. The more you know, the more you're going to sell.
And the better we all do, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so our agenda for today, we're going to talk about a few key points of making sure that you have Google Analytics set up properly. That's as nerdy as we're going to get, right? Okay. We're not going to actually even get too much into detail on that because there are many, many different technologies that people use for their websites. And for each of them, setting up Google Analytics is going to be a little bit different. So we're not going to give you the click-by-click how-to, but we're just going to give you some basic parameters of how to make sure that it's set up correctly so that you're getting the information you need for your marketing questions. And the questions that you can answer using Google Analytics: what are my best bets for online marketing investments next year? That's a question we get a lot, and we're going to show you how to get the answer. Which pages or posts are most likely to convert visitors into buyers? And the answer to that question is really important because then you know what to do more of and what to do less of, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And also, where should I invest more time on my website? We all don't have unlimited time or money, so we want to do what does the most good.
As in, improve your website.
Exactly. To improve the results from your website. Okay. So setting up Google Analytics, there is a very, very good video at this link here, and if you've got the handouts from this session, you can use that. So, you can get to that, or you can just search for setting up Google Analytics, and this one comes up fairly close to the top. It's a nice little 2-minute and 53-second video. We can't do much better than that in terms of letting you know how to set up your Google Analytics. It is a little bit different depending on what technology you're using, and most people, if you're using a web host or a service like WordPress, there are some ways to do this easier, some plugins, wizards, and other things that will make this really easy. Now, kind of the executive summary of Google Analytics is that it uses a tracking code, and everything is based on this code. So if you have more than one website or more than one Google property, as what they call them, you're going to have more than one code. But you want to make sure that this code is on every single page of your website. And you also want to make sure that it is receiving data. And there are some tests that they can do on the Google Analytics dashboard to make sure that that is happening. So when you're talking to your web guys and things like that, you want to make sure that you're receiving data and that you are tracking all pages on your website. And if those two things are true, that's about all you have to worry about, right?
That'd be true.
Okay. And once again, if you want specifics, Google Analytics is already set up on every website that we create for our clients. So just ask us about it if you want to know more. But if you are using a web host or something else, you may want to ask the folks there, the technical support. Okay, so questions so far?
Yeah, I'm told I have Google Analytics, but I don't know how to get into it. How does that work?
Okay, you do have to have some kind of a Google ID, and usually, that could be a Gmail address, that could be an ID that you use to get into YouTube, a YouTube account, things like that. So just make sure that you have some kind of a Google address. If not, you can always set one up for free. And then you ask your webmaster to add your Google address as your user ID, and then Google will generate a password for you. So you do have to have some kind of a Google ID, but then you can get your username and password from your web support people.
So, So can I get data from the past? That is, before I install Google Analytics.
Oh, no, you cannot. And that is why it is really, really important. If there is one thing to do today, it is to make sure that Google Analytics is on your site and tracking data for all of your pages, because if it is not set up, you don't have any data from today backward. So even if you don't use any of the rest of this video, you store this away somewhere in a bookmark to look at later, make sure that you are collecting data on your site. Otherwise, you're just missing a whole lot of gold here.
So a couple of questions that are similar. Does Bluehost do this for you, or does GoDaddy do this for you?
Very good questions on both parts, and the answer is yes and no.
So which is it, yes or no?
Well, okay, if you have GoDaddy as an example, then there are many different hosting packages within GoDaddy. And if you're using WordPress managed hosting, then they do not set this up for you, but they do have instructions on how to do it.
So, okay.
So yes or no. And Bluehost, I believe, will do it for you. You just call their customer support, and they will set up Google Analytics for you. So depending on who your host is, we use GoDaddy, we do it ourselves.
So this individual's got WordPress and says, isn't there a plugin for WordPress?
Yes, there is a plugin for WordPress. Actually, there are several. Some of them do just your Google Analytics code. Some of them do multiple codes for Google Analytics and Alexa and other services. So you might want to use a combined one, or you might want to use just a Google Analytics plugin. And most of the ones out there are pretty good. It's a fairly simple function, but you just want to make sure that those two things are happening. One, that the code is on all pages, and two, that you're actually receiving data.
I think that's all so far.
Okay, cool. All right, moving right along. What are my best bets for online investments next year? This is online advertisements that will bring you more high-quality visitors and buyers for your website, right?
Yes.
Okay. So to answer that question, I'm going to ask 3 more questions. Where did most of your traffic come from last year? Which sources sent you the highest quality traffic, and what were the trends? And those are 3 questions that Google can answer. It can't answer what are your best bets for investments, but it can answer these 3 questions, and that leads to your answer. We'll show you how, right? Okay, so first of all, where did most of my traffic come from this year?
Well, that presupposes you have Google Analytics.
We already talked about that. Of course they do. And they've been running it, we've tried to look at a year's worth of data at a time because that gives us more statistically significant data, right, John?
Yes. Yeah, the more data, the better.
The more data, the more accurate your results are going to be. So you can set your Google Analytics to look at, or whoever's doing your Google Analytics for you, you can set that to look at 1 month of data, which is the default, or you can set it for longer. And in this case, I'm looking at a year's worth of data. So that I can see a pretty stable set, or a pretty reliable, how do you call that in statistical language when you have a bigger
Statistically, oh,
the bigger the sample set, the more
significant
your data is, or the more reliable your data is. Okay, so here I'm looking at where did my traffic come from this year, and you can see, the vast majority, the vast majority of our traffic came from organic search. And this is this year versus last year. So this year is blue, last year is orange, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means I had a 44.92% increase over last year, which should make me very happy. It also is still my largest, it's always been my largest source of data, or largest source of visitors. So these are people who have gone to one of the search engines, Google, Bing, Yahoo, AOL, whatever search engines there are out there, and searched for something like aviation marketing, whatever your keywords are, and found you that way. And that really is the very best source, in my opinion, of visitors, because those are people who are actually looking for something that you have, right?
Yep.
Okay. Another source is direct, and what they mean by direct is people that typed in your, in our case it would be abci1.com or aviationbusinessconsultants.com, typed in our address into the address window, or they clicked a link in an email. In either case, it would look like a direct result.
Does that work for these QR codes too?
Yeah, it works for QR codes too. Any way that they get directly to your website without going through a search engine or another site or whatever. Social. Social went up just a little bit, and that's in our third place. This is real data, by the way, from ABCI's site. So if you're in the aviation industry, these are real numbers that you can probably use to estimate your own. So if you're that guy who hadn't installed Google Analytics yet and have no idea, you can start with somebody similar to you, see where they got their traffic, and start with that as a starting point to make some estimations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Referrals would be other sites, like Aviation Week, if we had commented on an article or were mentioned in an article and had a link to our site, that would come that way. Display, this is the first year we've done display ads, and what those are is actually what we call retargeting ads. We're using a company that does retargeting, which basically puts a cookie on other people's on other people's browsers when they visit our website, so that we know they visited our website, and then they go off to the Wall Street Journal or whatever, and then they're going to see an ad for our products and services on the Wall Street Journal. So if you've ever seen those ads that kind of follow you around on the web and wondered, how the heck do they do that? This is how they do that.
Yes.
It's something called retargeting. Highly recommended, by the way. Very good return on investment. Paid search, this is something we're experimenting with, so you can see there's not a lot of data there. We've advised against it for a very long time for anything other than things like events and things where you want to get butts in seats on a very short notice, or something like that. And you have no real alternative because it is an expensive way to get traffic. And other is everything else, and that's a small enough number we're not going to worry about it today.
Right.
Cool. All right. Okay, so there's some other information that we can get to on here, like the number of pages per session and the average session duration and things like that. We're going to talk about those things later, but for now, the most important thing we want to get from this particular report is where did the most traffic come from this year? If you're an ABCI client, you get this chart on your status report every single month, and now you know what to do with it, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So how did I get here? If you're in Google Analytics, how do you get to this particular chart? What you do is you scroll down on the left-hand side to all traffic, and you hit that link. That's how you get there. Cool? Okay. All right, so let's say we want to know, in fact, I'm going to go back for a minute because let's say I want to know more. I want to know more about social because I have done a lot of work with the social media this year. I want to know what's working and what's not. So I'm going to click on that link and see where that takes us. So that takes us to a table that gives us more data about social media in particular. And you can see our number one is Facebook, and that is more than twice, almost, yeah, exactly, more than twice what it was last year. LinkedIn did well this year. Twitter did less so. Google Plus and Instagram was pretty insignificant for the year. Okay, so if I were looking at this, I want to look at, number one, where did I get the most visitors from? And then I'm going to look at a couple of other things like bounce rate. What does that tell us? That tells us how many people came to the website or came to one page on our website and immediately bounced back out again, right, without touching any other links or going anywhere else. So, we want to have a low bounce rate, and you can see the highest bounce rate was Instagram. So, that gives me the indication that maybe that's not the best source of traffic. Although, that also can mean they were looking at one particular article, they got what they needed, they got the information they needed, and then they left, which is not a terrible thing. So like on LinkedIn, the way that we use LinkedIn is we publish our blog posts, and it doesn't matter to me if somebody comes to one of our blog posts and then leaves, because they got the information they needed, they had a positive interaction with our brand. We feel pretty good about that. That's worth doing, right?
But you have to understand what's underlying the numbers.
Exactly. So, you can make some assumptions and then test your theories just like any other data set, right? Mm-hmm. You want to think like a scientist here. What's my theory? My theory is we're publishing articles on LinkedIn, therefore people are going to just visit that article and we're going to have a higher bounce rate. What can I do to test that theory? Are they spending a lot of time on the site? Here they're spending 48 seconds, so that's about long enough to maybe read the first couple of paragraphs of an article. That might be all they need is an quick answer to a question. They're done. So that supports that theory, right? Okay. They're spending a really long time if they're coming from Facebook, 3 minutes and 53 seconds. So what that tells me is that they are more interested if they're coming from Facebook.
Yep.
The reason for that, my theory, is that this Facebook is more targeted. When I put an ad on Facebook, I can select, these are people that maybe have an interest in aviation marketing, who are members of NBAA, who own a particular make and model of aircraft, who live in a particular part of the United States, who have a certain level of income. All of those things are things that I can select on Facebook that I can't select anywhere else. So, well, at least not with the same degree of granularity.
And what's interesting is people, at least in aviation, will deny they use Facebook, but it's insidious, and whether they deny it or not, in reality, the majority of folks do. That's why what she's doing works.
Exactly. So data doesn't lie. If people tell me, actually I have people tell me all the time, people in aviation don't use Facebook, but this is a year's worth of data that says otherwise.
That's right.
Okay. Everybody tells you that they use LinkedIn, so we can believe them. They're absolutely right, but they also do use Facebook. So yes. People will lie to you, data will not. At least as long as you have a big enough data set to.
As long as your universe of data is large enough, you can pretty much rely on that.
Exactly. So that's why I love this stuff. It's just so much better than asking people what they want. Seeing what they actually do is a very different story. Okay, so let's come back to what are my best bets for online investments this year? Where did most of the traffic come from? What sources sent the highest quality traffic? And also, what were the trends? So based on that, Let me go back. What do you think, John?
Facebook,
Okay, that's number one. What
LinkedIn,
would you pick as number two? Okay, LinkedIn. So let's
and
call that
Google.
number
And
one.
Google,
Number two.
if I remember.
And number three, Google. Yeah, that has a pretty low bounce rate. People are spending a long time on this. Pretty low bounce rate. People are spending a long time on the site, and we got a pretty decent amount of traffic. Not a heck of a lot, but so there's our 1, 2, and 3 based on those criteria, right?
Yep, that's what I said.
Yep, that's what you said. Cool. All right. Caveat, try at least one new thing each year that you either haven't tried before or maybe you didn't spend a lot of time or money on and you think it has potential. Why would we do that and not just stick with what we know?
Well, because you want, like a boat fishing in the water, throw out another hook, different kind of bait. You might find something you like better.
Exactly. And any one of these things could bomb next year. I mean, Facebook could merge with somebody and go out of business. And if that's where we get 80% of our traffic, if we don't have any alternatives to that, we're up a creek. So, diversity is stability, right?
Well, they may not merge, but Google might buy them.
Yeah, exactly.
Then things change.
Right, or they might change their terms of service and, get rid of ads. They may get sued. Any weird thing can happen in the world. You don't ever want to rely on any one thing for your source of revenue. So diversity is a wonderful thing. And trying one new thing a year, we think is a really good investment because you're not going to spend that much money and that much time, but you are going to see whether it works or not, and you're going to be measuring that all throughout the year, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So, questions so far?
Let me see. And not necessarily in order, but to try new things, what are some of the best bets?
Okay. Once again, if you don't have data, right, if you're starting from scratch, you can start with our data. If you're in the aviation industry, it's probably pretty safe to follow our results. I would start with LinkedIn and Facebook if you're talking about social. If you're talking about organic is always a good investment. It's not always quick. In fact, it can take you 3 to 6 months to start seeing results from organic, but you could see that was even higher than our social media on our general results. So we mentioned in a podcast last week, you want to diversify your marketing investment so that you have one short, one medium, and one long-term investment, at least one, usually several, at any given time. So if you're starting from scratch, pick one short-term investment like maybe pay-per-click or a banner ad or something like that if you need people to get to your site right away. Pick one medium-term investment like content, writing blog posts, things like that are fairly low cost but build over time and give you a longer return. And one long-term investment like search engine optimization that will give you a continuing return over a longer time. Sound good?
Sound like you answered the other question, was what if you started from scratch and don't have data from last year?
Okay.
So you answered both of them.
Cool. Yeah, that was the intention.
And nobody's writing anything else, so
Okay, good. If you do have questions, you can go ahead and write them into the question box, and John will moderate those for us, which is really nice. So next question, which pages or posts are most likely to convert buyers? Now, we've touched on this, but we can get even more specific. We're going to talk about 3 things. 1, traffic volume. 2, time on the page. And 3, traffic flow. So some of those things we've already touched on, but now we're going to look at specific pages and how we can tell for each specific page how those things are doing. Okay, so let's go to a report. This is traffic volume. So let's say we, this is an article that we wrote in 2010, and this is why it's a really good medium and long-term investment to write good content. Because this is it's 2016. This is a 6-year-old article.
no.
Is that right?
2010, yeah, 16, yes, it is. Wow.
6-year-old article, yeah. 6-year-old article. It got 1,214 page views over the year. Um, you know, of those, 654 were unique, meaning people came back to this page more than once, and they spent 46 seconds on it. So that tells me that this particular page is a pretty good investment, a pretty good page to be putting some ads on and spending some time on optimizing. Why did I go to that one and not any of the others? The first one is actually our home page, and usually that looks like a little slash, just because it shows you this is a top-level directory in nerd language, and Google Analytics is a little nerdy, or looks a little nerdy. The next one is a category, which is our aviation marketing category, and we didn't really count that because it's not really that helpful. It's just kind of a switchboard page, not really a content page. So the first one that I can see that would be a good opportunity to spend some time on is this number 3, a word about pricing strategy for aviation products. Make sense?
And the next one's not so bad either.
Yeah, that's our marketing flight plan, which is one of our products. So people are spending some time on that. Here's another one from last year, how to plan a customer appreciation event for maximum marketing impact. And people spent an even longer time on that one. There were fewer people that visited. So
Right.
Traffic volume, we want to look at our top 10 and see what content pages show up in that top 10. Maybe even make a list of our top 10 content pages, which means we might go into 20 or 30 of our top pages and say which are our top content pages. And say those are ones that look like they might be good opportunities to convert visitors into buyers, or at least to focus our attention on, right?
Right.
Okay, so traffic volume, time on page. I'm going to go deeper into our directory. This is 39 through 45, so this is further down the list. But look at some of these times. Dress code. Your dress code is marketing. That's one of our podcasts. People are actually listening to that, I can tell, because they're spending 5 minutes and 25 seconds. Social media usage among aviation professionals, that's their survey results from last year. How to use LinkedIn for prospecting in aviation. LinkedIn company pages to follow. So I'm seeing a trend here, right? LinkedIn is a good topic to write more pages about, and also it's a good topic that people seem to want to spend more time on, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that tells me 2 pieces of data that are really helpful. How did I get to these reports? Let me show you really quickly. I came down to, on behavior, all pages. So this is the report that I'm looking at here. And that was my 1 through 10, and then also went further down the page to look at some that had a really high amount of time on the page, right?
Yes.
Clear so far?
Well, to me, hopefully nobody's raising a hand or having a question, so let's say yes.
They're either completely lost them or we're doing good, right? Okay, here's another one of my favorite reports, and this shows us where do visitors go as they come in, and it shows us what was the landing page, what interaction did they have, what was the first interaction, and then what was the second. So as an example, let's say, this is a guy that comes in on our homepage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes to our About page. And that actually is a fairly good interaction because this is somebody who saw our homepage and says, I want to know more about this company. Another really good page is if they go to our products page. If they go here, that makes us very happy because that means they want something from us. So 246 people did this, 198 people did that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
You're either dazzling everybody with brilliance or baffling them with...
Absolutely. Okay, so, good interactions would be things like they came in on a homepage or they came in on a particular article and then they went to a contact us page or they went to one of what we call our selling pages, like, here's a product that we sell or a service that we sell. Here's more information about something that we do. So, what we're looking for as that first or second interaction is that they go to one of our selling pages. So we look for those here, like our products page, and say, where did they come from to get here? And in this case, it was our home page. But we can drill down and look at any one of our pages and say, where do they go after they come to this page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So far, so good. Okay, and here's a little bit more detail. I can click on one of these links, like our products page, which I just talked about as one of our selling pages. And I can see, of the people that came through our homepage, 139 people came to this page, which is our product page, which then goes off to our different products that we sell. 139 of them went on to another page from that switchboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 59 of them just dropped off altogether and said, okay, now I've seen your menu, but I'm not hungry, so I'm leaving.
Which the number of 59 looks large, but look at the percentage.
Yeah, most people actually went through to look at least one other of our product pages. So if you've got something like a product catalog on your site, if they go to the catalog, that's great. And then if they continue from the catalog page to a specific product, that's greater, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So we want to look at each of our sell pages and see, where did people come from to get here, right? What was the page before each of our selling pages? Okay, cool. So back to our questions. Which pages are the most likely to convert visitors to buyers? The things that we can look at are traffic volume, the amount of time they spent on page, the pages they visited before your sell pages, and we also want to look at through traffic versus drop-offs.
Yep.
So that gives us some pretty good information about which pages are really effective and which pages are really not, right?
And if you're not doing this analysis, you're selling yourself short and your website and all the work you've done on it, because this is what's necessary to follow through to get people to convert.
Yeah, having a great website and having a lot of traffic on it is fabulous. But if they never buy anything, you're wasting your time and wasting your money, right?
We had several years ago, when we had just started early, we had a client that, according to them, spent $250,000 on a website, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was a great catalog, and it had some flash videos, and it was, well, part of the problem was the flash, but it was a beautiful, gorgeous, drop-dead site, right?
And after about a year to 18 months, they had not even made one sale from their website.
Exactly, and we could not figure out, just by looking at the site, what was wrong with it. We had to dig into the data and look at these reports that we've just been showing you in order to figure out where the problems were and how to fix them.
Yes.
Okay. Cool, so questions?
Oh, let's see. How do we reduce bounce rate? And what the heck does bounce rate mean other than it's bad?
Good question. Okay, bounce rate means that they come into a particular page on your site and then they bounce right back out again without going to any other link. So, for example, we publish an article on our website. People come into that page and then they go off to look at a cat video on YouTube or something like that. They didn't click any other link on our site. That would be considered a bounce. And it's not always bad, especially if you have a blog or a podcast or something like that. There's going to be some people that just come in to look at your most recent article and then go back out again. And that becomes part of their weekly pattern, right? We want to encourage that sort of thing. What we don't want to have happen is people come into your site, spend 2 or 3 seconds, and leave, because what that means is they're not finding what they want, right?
Exactly.
So how you reduce your bounce rate is, number one, you build higher quality content. You answer questions that people really have. You build better headlines with good keywords that mean something to your audience. You include things like videos or podcasts or tables or charts or good data that people are looking for on your website, so that it's really high quality stuff and it's not just a brochure about our company. with, pictures of your president and how long you've been in business. It's really, people are going to look at that and go, whatever. I don't see how that helps me with solve a problem or get more information that I need. Right? Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Well, to me.
Okay, yeah, if that didn't answer your question, go ahead and type another question mark or whatever you like to do and let us know. So.
And this one looks like somebody got in a hurry and they typed, but it says our highest volume pages are sort of tangential to our core business and don't seem interested in the rest of our content. So I suspect that that means that people would hit the high volume pages. So what should we do?
Okay. This can happen when you do something like something funny or, some humor or something like that, which is not a terrible thing to do, but it's not really relevant to your product or service. There are a couple of things that you can do. One is to connect it better, create better navigation between that and your core content or your core topics. So, let's say you have a cartoon that is hysterical, but is not really directly related to your product or service. You can write a paragraph under that cartoon about how this can happen if you don't take good care of your airplane. So you should check out our maintenance services or something. You have to make the connection for people between the funny or cool or interesting content to your product or service, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you also need to make sure you have good navigation on those pages, because if they can't tell in a second or two visually where to go next, they're just going to leave. And, so that didn't help you at all to publish that beautiful picture or that nice video or that cool YouTube video or, whatever it is that you did.
This next question may shed some light on that.
Okay.
Our highest volume pages have the lowest time on page. What does that mean?
Okay. That is not uncommon, especially for like your homepage is kind of a switchboard, right? So your homepage is probably your highest volume page. For most of us, that's true. But it's also the page that people spend the least amount of time, because when they come to your homepage, they're just looking for something more specific. It's like you don't walk in the door of a Home Depot and stand there in the doorway. You go down one of the aisles to get what it is that you want, right? Okay, so if it's on what we call a switchboard page or a menu page or something like that, don't worry too much about the amount of time spent. But if they're not spending time on your content pages, that's when you have a problem.
And you need to do some thinking and writing.
Exactly, and make it more interesting, more cool, more better in some way. More better.
Good English. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
no more questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so where should I invest more time on my website? Most of us have more things to do, including myself, have more things to do than time to do them. And, if you look at some of the automated services that will evaluate your website and crank out this report of here's all the things that are wrong with your website or things that could be improved about your website, you could do nothing but crank through those things or, hand them to your web person and do nothing but spend thousands of dollars cranking through trivia that will make very little difference, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we want to talk about where you should invest your time or your money if you're paying a webmaster. So the three things that I think are really good investments in terms of selling more products or services are, one, to add calls to action, or lead magnets, to use advertisements for your own products and services on your content pages, and three, to include easier navigation to your selling pages. So we talked about what those were before, your catalog or specific products or services that you're selling, right? So those three things, and we'll tell you how to do that in just a moment, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So start with your top 10 pages. You don't want to, of course you can put better navigation in a sidebar or something like that where it does things on every page, but if you're going to customize or optimize any of your pages, you want to start with the ones that get the most traffic to begin with. So you've heard of Pareto's Law, right, John?
No.
The 80-20 rule?
Oh, is that what that is? Far better you say what it is.
Okay.
But now everybody knows what the 80-20 rule is.
The 80-20 rule, 80% of your work gets 20% of the results, and then you tip that on its head. 20% of your work gets 80% of the results. So you want to do the 20% of the work and get 80% of the results, right? Okay. Perry Marshall talks about this in his book a lot, about how you can 80-20 everything that you do. You want to do 20% of the work and get 80% of the value out of it. And how you do that with Google Analytics is you take the top 20% of your data and you do your work on that. You know, do 20% of the work that get 80% of the results. So I'm going to take these 10 pages and I'm going to do the 3 things that we talked about, which is add advertisements, create lead magnets, and those kinds of things on these pages. So I'm going to go to this page, which is how to plan a customer appreciation event for maximum marketing impact, which is our number 7. So on this one, I know this is a good investment because it got 865 people visiting it. So that's a good place to spend some time. So what I did is I went to that page and I created an ad for our Insider Circle. And I posted it on that page. And I actually wrote some content into this. Need more great ideas? Join Aviation Sales and Marketing Insider Circle, and included an advertisement for that product. So I know people are interested in this topic. I know they're spending time on this article, so I know people are reading this. I'm not putting a billboard on a dirt road where nobody's going to see it, right?
Right.
I have a nice amount of traffic here, and I have a pretty good indication that people are already reading this. So I'm going to spend my time here. Okay, another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take another one of those top 10 pages, and I'm going to create a lead magnet. So let's say I have a page, and this page is, how much should I spend on aviation marketing? And I'm going to create a marketing budget in Excel that people can download. So this is a free worksheet that people can actually download and use. I know that people are interested in this. I know that people are reading this page. But how do I get them to take the next step in my marketing system? I don't have their contact information, right? But I can get it. And the way that I get it is I put some bait out there that makes them click on that and fill out a form and download something that has a high perceived value, right?
Yes.
So the key here is when I'm picking my highest volume pages, like we looked at LinkedIn before, we also have a LinkedIn lead magnet on those pages. So I take the topic from those pages and I create something that they have to take another step in order to download that and take the next step in my marketing system. That saves my time because I know that people that download this worksheet have an interest in having a marketing budget, which means that they're probably more likely to be customers for me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so whatever the topic is of your website, you want to create a lead magnet about that, and that could be a checklist or a worksheet or whatever, and make sure that they have to enter their contact information in order to get that, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So good investments. Add calls to action or lead magnets. We also call those lead magnets. Add advertisements for your own products and services on your best pages, right? Not on all pages because you don't want to spend that time. If you can turn this on its head and look at your 10 worst performing pages and just probably even get rid of them, or at least improve them significantly. So only on your best pages. Easier navigation to all of your selling pages. Especially from content pages that have the same topic. Start with your top 10 pages. Use the Pareto principle, which is, once again, the 80-20 rule, right?
Yep.
Okay. create CTAs and lead magnets on your best topics. And how do you know what your best topics are? You have a number of pieces of content about that one particular topic. You can see which ones perform the best, what people spend the most time on, and which ones get the best traffic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So those are good investments, and we know what those are. So questions so far?
If we only have 10 hours allocated to improve our website, I don't know if that's 10 hours a week, 10 hours a month, 10 hours a year, what things do you suggest we do?
Okay. So if you have, let's say you have a contract with a web designer or something like that to do 10 hours worth of work, what should you have them spend their time doing? I would say that the top things would be to pick your best topics and pick your best pages, and we talked about how to do that, and create some ads. And I do mean visual ads. You can also do text ads with links and things like that to embed into those pages. So that would be the best use of time, I think, for your web designer or for you to spend 10 hours is take your top 10 pages, spend an hour on each, either building a text ad or a visual ad on each of them. Sound like a plan?
You're the boss and the doctor.
Okay.
You know this stuff.
All right. Well, that's what I would do if I only had 10 hours.
We already have ads on our site from Google AdSense, and we get paid about $100 a month for those. Should we put our own ads on those pages as well?
Okay. First of all, when we talked at the beginning of this webinar about the purpose for your site, if the purpose for your site is to make advertising revenue, then none of this applies to you. We have a whole different set of criteria that we would talk about. So if your intention is to have a revenue-generating site, then you want to maximize the amount of revenue you get from posting other people's or publishing other people's ads. If the goal for your website is to sell your own products and services, and I would hope that you make more than $100 a month selling your own products and services, I would get rid of your Google AdSense and every other advertising on your site that is not for your own products and services.
It detracts from your stuff.
Exactly. You are building this beautiful real estate, and then you're putting other people's billboards all over your beautiful real estate. That makes absolutely no sense. You want to advertise your own products and services. Just like when you go into a Marriott, the advertisements that you see are for their restaurants and their services and their business center and so on. You want to make sure that the only thing that you're advertising on your site are your own products and services, and you're using the real estate in the best possible way for that. So don't spend your time and energy building beautiful real estate for other people's advertisements. This is for you, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So do you advocate pop-up ads?
Yes and no. Okay. Watch the data. Okay, data doesn't lie. People do. So everybody will tell you pop-up ads are evil. They're horrible. They're nasty. Nobody likes them. Everybody will go away from your site and never use it again if you use pop-up ads. That is sometimes true. But watch the data. If you want to do a 3-month experiment, put a pop-up ad on 2 or 3 of your best performing pages and see what happens. Some people find that they work really, really well. So, you want to use non-obnoxious pop-up ads like the ones that slide up from the bottom, don't cover the entire page, and those kinds of things. You might try a couple of different variations of those, but some of them do really well, and, watch the data because data doesn't lie.
Me, on the other hand, I do everything I can to get rid of them.
Yes,
as a user, I mean. Okay.
Exactly, and there are some people who won't see them because of their pop-up blockers and other kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you also have native ads on the page, that are actually part of the content, so that people who have those ad blockers will actually see your content.
And actually, I don't use ad blocking so far. I do a lot of other stuff.
Pop-up blockers and so on.
No pop-up blockers. I don't do any of that.
Yeah.
I use other stuff that's built into the router and built into the browser and built into the computer. You just have to research that stuff.
Exactly. So if it doesn't work, don't do it. But if it does work, I will tell you that there are a lot of people in aviation who are doing very well with them.
So another question, how many ads are too many?
Okay. I think as long as it doesn't detract from your content, as long as it is relevant. So, for example, on a page about LinkedIn, I would put a page for a LinkedIn tip sheet or something like that, but I wouldn't put a page for or an ad for our um, budget spreadsheet on a LinkedIn page as an example, because it doesn't, it's not relevant to the content, and it changes the subject from what the reader is looking for. So you want to think kind of like a magazine editor and think about, people who pick up this magazine or people who read this page, what is going to be the most interesting and enjoyable for them, and advertise only those things. And as long as it's relevant, I don't think there's such a thing as too many.
Don't know.
Okay.
I mean, you get to the point where all you see are ads, then you're missing the whole.
Right. Of course, if it's a page about aviation products, then the whole thing can be about aviation products. And ads for different aviation products, that's what people are looking for. But if they go to a page looking for how do I do something on LinkedIn, as long as you answer their question, then you can also offer some tip sheets or some other information on LinkedIn.
Whatever.
Okay.
That's
We're going to agree to disagree on that one, right?
There's nobody else has got anything out there, so if you want to continue, if anything comes up, I'll let you know.
Okay, cool. All right, so next steps from this point. Of course, you can do this on your own. You've got lots of information that you can use. I would recommend that you take these 3 questions and your Google Analytics reports and create your own action plan. If you want to sell more products and services, do what we told the gentleman that only had 10 hours to do. Basically take your top 10 pages and make them better. Put some ads on there, some calls to action, and so on. Make the navigation better in your site if you need to do that. Use the data to make good decisions about how to sell more stuff, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And you want to keep the emphasis on the right syllable. Don't try to sell other people's stuff on your website, and don't try to be everything to everybody. The purpose of your website is to sell your own products and services. So make sure that the main thing is the main thing. Okay? All right. So here's a couple of ways that we can help you. We have 2 different products that we're featuring this month. One is search engine optimization. We've talked about this a little bit. The purpose of this is to get found on the web by the people who are looking for your product or service. And we do that by finding the best keywords to optimize for you and potentially adding things on your site and adding links to your site from other places to really help you get found on the web and get you a better search engine placement and get more traffic. As you noticed, our highest best investment every year has been search engine optimization, making our site better and more relevant to people who are looking for aviation marketing services. So whatever it is that you're selling, you want to be the one that people find when they go to Google or Yahoo or Bing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's search engine optimization. The other thing is a lead magnet. Once they get to your page, you want to capture their contact information and give them some reason to contact you, to download a spreadsheet or a checklist or a tip sheet or something like that. Give them a reason to take the next step in your sales process. And that gives your salespeople a steady stream of leads who have expressed an interest in your product or service. So those are the 2 best recommendations that we can provide for selling stuff on your website. So the outcomes of SEO, what we're looking for is more traffic to your site, better quality visits. So, the gentleman that was worried about things not being relevant, we can look at that and help you solve that problem make sure we make those connections between the content that's performing well and the products and services you have to sell. Okay, and we have packages that run at $7.99, $10.49, or $15.60 a month. And that really depends on the amount of competition you have, who you're competing with, and so on. And we also have a 3-month minimum on our search engine optimization. We've mentioned that this is a long-term investment. It takes about 3 months to start seeing the results from this, and it actually becomes kind of a permanent improvement on your website. There will be some ups and downs as Google makes changes and the other search engines make changes to their algorithms. But for the most part, if you invest in SEO, it's usually a very long-term investment. Lead magnets, on the other hand, are if you are already getting a good amount of traffic to your site, but they're not buying anything. This is how you solve that problem. So what we do here is we give them a reason to give you their contact information and begin the sales process. So we have a tip sheet that is like a checklist or a one-page lead magnet that's $12.99, and we have something that's a little more extensive. It's a buyer's guide. That's a 4-page item that people can download for $17.99. And we will build that for you. We put the form on your site. We set it up so that all the programming is done. You get a notification when somebody fills it out, and all of that stuff, right? Okay, so we have a limited time offer. If you buy both the search engine optimization and a lead magnet, then you get $100 off of the purchase of those things. And we'll take questions for another 15 minutes or till we run out of questions, whichever comes first, right? So, do we have questions?
Yeah, probably more than you want.
Okay, that's okay. We'll go right ahead and take them.
I'm going to modify the question that says, does it matter? And actually it does. So why does it matter which level of SEO we buy?
Okay. It matters because if you don't have, well, what matters is what your competitors are doing. So, if you have a very specific product or service, then there are not many people who are going after your customers, right? So, if you have very specific keywords like aircraft preheat systems, as an example, that is a fairly specific keyword. But if you're doing something like aircraft sales, that would be a more general keyword, and there's a lot more people who are doing aircraft sales than there are who are selling aircraft preheat systems. So if you have a very specific set of customers that you're after, then it doesn't take as much work to do the search engine optimization than if you have something more general. Also, if your competitors are spending a lot of money on search engine optimization and advertising and everything else, and they're big companies, like if you're competing with all of the FBOs in the world or all of the fuel companies in the world that have a lot of money to spend on advertising, then you're going to need more search engine optimization to compete in that market.
Why should we spend more on SEO? That is, buy the higher price package.
Exactly. I think that's kind of the same question. So if you have a lot of competition, you would need a higher level of service in search engine optimization to beat your competitors. So, we probably can talk about your specific situation, what you're trying to sell, who your competitors are, and have a look before we recommend either low, medium, or high search engine optimization. But in general, like flight schools are on the very high end. There's a lot of competition for them and a lot of people looking for flight schools on the web. If you sell a very specific component for landing gear for King Air 150 or King Air 500 ERs, 350 ERs, then you're going to have fewer people looking for your specific product or service. Or one really specific one is the battery packs that power the evacuation slides for aircraft. That's a really specific market that probably would be on the low end for SEO.
Let's see. Can we have more than one lead magnet on our site?
Yes, you can. If you have more than one product or service, then chances are you're going to want more than one lead magnet. So you might want to have like a buyer's guide for one particular kind of product versus a buyer's guide for a different kind of product. One is not going to serve the purpose of the other. So yes, you can have more than one, and we'd be happy to build one for you. We have 12 on our site. We've got tip sheets for different things that people do with aviation marketing, because there's a lot of variation there, and a lot of people are looking for different things. The more specific, the better. The more attractive it is to somebody that's interested in your product or service.
So, how do you capture information for this lead magnet?
Okay, so when we put together a lead magnet for you, we build a form that goes on your website, or that people can get to from your website, and they fill out. We can capture whatever you want. Usually, there's kind of a trade-off there. The more information we capture, the fewer people actually fill out the form. But we can get name, address, phone number, contact information, how big is your fleet. We can ask them qualifying questions and other kinds of things. But we usually like to keep it fairly simple and just get their contact information. And then we can either make that go directly into your CRM, depending on what CRM you're using. If you're using Salesforce or Infusionsoft or ActiveCampaign or something like that, we might be able to get that to go directly into your CRM, or we can have it go to your email or your cell phone, or both, or all three. So, have it go to your sales people directly so that they can follow up immediately, which often is a really good idea, because the shorter time there is between them requesting information and you following up with them, the better. But we do that however you want, basically.
So what are some examples of lead magnets?
Okay. Some of the lead magnets that we've done would be things like the anatomy of an aircraft sale. We did that for Dallas Jet International. That's a nice ebook that describes the entire process of selling an aircraft, how they go about it. They have a 12-step process that gets really involved in some cases. We have a tip sheet for people who are having an airport construction project done for Centrex Construction, and 5 questions you should ask your contractor before beginning an airport construction project. We have, like we said, an Excel spreadsheet for a marketing budget that people can download. That's an example of a tip sheet or a lead magnet. What are some other ones that we've done, John? I know we have quite a few out there.
Well, for brokers.
Yeah, that would be the anatomy of an aircraft sale.
Well, we've also done one for another broker.
Right. And that would be getting an estimate on but that's not really a lead magnet. That's a request for a consultation. But we can do that as well. We can do a checklist. We got one from our painter the other day that actually was a pretty good inspiration. Here are things you should look for in a painting contractor. Go shop around, but they're defining all the criteria of things you should look for when you look for a painter, and are they licensed and bonded and other kinds of things. So we can do one for a specific company about their product or service. What things should customers look for? What questions should they ask?
So these things that you want to provide in return for information, do you write the buyer's guides or tip sheets or whatever, or where do we get them?
We write them for you, and basically we have a consultation with you, brainstorming some ideas, and then we'll go with one that you like, and we'll write it for your review. There may be some data that we need to get from you in order to make it really relevant and helpful to your customers. But we basically do the work to do the interviews, capture the information, put it together, format it, make it downloadable, make it come from the download form or from an email that comes after, the process and so on. So we do all of the work with setting that up and making it happen.
Wow. Somebody's funny. Is $100 in cash, or do you take it off our bill?
We take it off your bill. I guess if you wanted it in cash, depending on whose money you're spending. If you're spending your boss's money and you want us to send you a $100 bill, that's interesting. Talk to us. We'll see what we can do for you. Actually, most likely we'll probably just take it off your bill and save you $100 on the purchase of those two products together.
Well, as it happens, that's all the questions so far.
Okay.
We are 5.5 minutes over, and we have 5.5 minutes left, so we probably
That's probably good.
Give these guys some time.
Absolutely. Okay, if you do have other questions, you can post them. We'll actually post the recording of this video, and you can post comments to that, and we will answer those questions as well. So thank you for joining us. We know it's a very busy time of year, and we appreciate your time, and I'm glad that you took this opportunity to learn more about the very nerdy subject of Google Analytics, but now hopefully you have some really concrete ways of using that information, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have a great week.
Ciao.